These 5 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces in overnight raids in the occupied West Bank. The latest operation took place near a refugee camp in the city of Tulkarem. Residents say dozens of Israeli army vehicles and bulldozers stormed the area. Charles Stratford's in Tulkarem in the occupied West Bank, so bring us up to date with what's been happening on these raids.
Yes, Rob, this was another long, extensive raid by the Israeli military overnight. Locals here inside the Tulkarem refugee camp, Nora Shamp's camp, saying that the raid started at around 1 a.m. last night. The Israeli military, didn't leave until 10 a.m. This is one of the strike sites. We'll show you around. If now the cameraman just pans down here, this is interesting. This is one of the strike sites from a projectile that was launched from above from a drone. As you can see, pretty low impact in terms of the destruction on the ground, but these devices are absolutely lethal, because if now pans round and you have a look at the wall here, you can see that this is absolutely shredded with shrapnel and these tiny ball bearings. If you come around and have a look here as well, you can see where some of these have literally penetrated the steel and gone through. Now, there were 3 people killed during this strike. According to locals, they're saying the first projectile hit, and there were a couple of members of the armed resistance that were here. We understand that one was immediately killed, and another one was seriously injured. And speaking to the gentleman who owns this house, he was saying that he heard a knock on the door, which was by one of these injured members of the armed resistance. You can see the blood here on the floor. Now, according to the owner of the house, his son came up these stairs, on which there is still blood. He came up these stairs to answer the door, and as he opened the door, there was a second strike, and that second strike killed his son. Now, the son is around 30 years old. He has 4 children, and as you can see, family members, friends, members of the community are now waiting for the body to be brought from the hospital so they can pay their last respects before he is taken to be buried. But yeah, this was one of at least 2 strikes, we understand, using Israeli drones. Now, Tulkarem, this refugee camp, has long been a centre for the armed resistance, and of course the armed resistance is considered a legitimate form of resistance by the many thousands of people that live here and right the way across Palestine, a resistance against the occupying power, that being Israel. But there are around about 17,000 people live in this camp, and they are facing raids like this pretty much every day. The roads not far from here is being completely dug up by one of these Israeli armoured bulldozers. There are a number of businesses as well that we've seen that were also hit. We don't have numbers of those that were arrested, but as I say, this is happening on a daily basis now. What's also interesting, though, is speaking to the gentleman who's lost his son. He was saying that they made repeated calls to the ambulance crews to try and save a son who was bleeding to death. 4 hours it took for the ambulances to be let in. There are constantly complaints by ambulance crews, by medics, that despite them basically going through the protocol, the official protocol, which is the ambulance staff contacting the Israeli military, telling them exactly where they need to be in a given location in order to get into, for example, a camp like this to come and treat the wounded or pull the wounded out. They're saying that these calls now are just being ignored by the Israeli military. They say that they are suffering serious harassment. Many crews have their staff detained. They are often strip-searched. And many of them are targeted directly. It was only yesterday that we were in Jenin following another large raid, and we saw an ambulance that had taken bullet holes at the front of the vehicle, directly underneath where the driver sits, also around the sides of that ambulance. So, yeah, this kind of situation, it just highlights not only the kind of terror that thousands of civilians are facing during these raids on places like this, but the huge difficulties that ambulance staff, that medical crews are facing on a daily, on a nightly basis as these raids continue.
Charles, thanks very much indeed. Charles Stratford talking to us from the occupied West Bank.